Sam, great to have you back on the podcast, man. Excited for our chat today.
It's going to be sick. It's my hat trick.
Yeah, it is the third. Yeah, the trio.
It's the treble.
Fun. It's fun going back too, especially like the other podcasts we've done. And I always redo the questions to make sure I don't triple ask questions or things like that.
Yeah.
And but one of the things that I was noticing that you're up to recently was you're one of the few coaches I've seen use a jump rope in probably the last 5 years. I don't see a lot of jump ropes these days.
No.
Tell me a little bit about where you use that in the program and just your thoughts with that.
Yeah, for sure. I think just a slight segue over the 3 podcasts that we've done. I'd love to pride myself on my own evolution as a human being across those 3 over the last, I think it was 2019, maybe.
Yeah.
And that I think that's huge. The quest of growth and with that, with the jump rope, the growth comes from going back. It goes right back to where we started because, now if a coach wants to try to learn, and let's rephrase learn to emulate or mirror or replicate, where are they going to go? They're going to go on social media. So then they're gonna go, oh, I need a cool idea. My shiny meter is dim, so I need to re-engage myself with something shiny, and so you'll go online. But actually, when I look for variation, I go right back to first principles. And if you go, I always go back to my first book that I bought, which was Secret Soviet Sports. By Dr. Michael Yeses, and you're like, well, how did it start? Where did it start? Because the further we go away from all those principles, the more error that we start to create when we're looking for transfer, right? So it was like, well, they use skipping, they use jump rope. I'd used it years ago, and why not? It's challenging. It's really challenging, and it's very aerobic. It's elastic driven. It requires lots of coordination, lots of timing. You have to be able to just sit in this pocket of rhythm, that movement and locomotion, all those are required. Like my fiance, she's a triple threat. So singer, actor, dancer, professional. And I talk to her about rhythm all the time. It's like, well, we need our pickup skills. And this is what's really interesting, how this translates into sport. When you go to do an audition, I don't know if you've got any familiarity with dancing, but when you go to an audition, you have to learn a routine, nail it, master it in like 30 minutes. So what they call it pickup skills. So your ability to draw on your wide range of dance, moves, history, general preparation is required to then action and put into this unique way that's 3 minutes. It's not like a 30-second routine. You've got to pick up a 3-minute routine. And then if you do a show, you've got to do like 8 of them across a 2-hour set, 7 nights a week. So where the jump rope comes into that, again, it's like hitting that rhythm. And if you can get doses of even like 2 minutes, like 2 minutes is a lot of skips.
Mm-hmm.
But then also you've kind of got the pocket. Let's play with the pocket. You've got, CrossFit do double unders. They're all a bunch of fucks. We're not going to use a jump rope.
Yeah, association. Yep. That is a principle too. Yeah, 100%.
I actually just ordered a heavy rope as well for conditioning. I've never used one before. I thought, why not? Let's put it on steroids and let's play around. I like fluidity. We got that in common. We understand like movement. I live by the ocean now, so you just watch the sea and you get it, right? And some of the rope flow stuff is what great warm up, what great prep, just to chuck it around. It feels good, and I incorporated that. I had a hiatus from sport and I did some boxing. And you want to know about rhythm. You want to know about movement and rotation, front foot, back foot, like. That's another way of developing those qualities. So in my textbook fashion, that's a really roundabout way of saying I like using jump ropes.
Yeah. Yeah. It's something I've been thinking about recently is uh, Cliff Harsky talks about strength and conditioning, the idea of rebranding it to strength conditioning movement, because the movement is like the last, it's either the last thing talked about or it's talked about very superficially, like internal cueing, like, okay, we're going to move. So do these three things versus things that are inherently rhythmic. Like a jump rope, you don't need a cue. You just need to go do it. And the rhythm is going to teach you a lot. And the rhythm as well, I'm really getting to this place where I view velocity, like there's a rhythm at the core of every high speed movement that you do. And so there's that. And then there's also like the meaning behind stuff. Like I think if you don't have something that's kind of meaningful and fun, then you just have a bunch of exercises. And I don't think it's wrong to have a bunch of exercises, but if you could just do something that's meaningful and fun, then you kind of have an additive effect in many cases. And yeah, it's I was just watching the old Mike Tyson compilations with him on the rope, and it's unbelievable. It's like the tricks and then the power. It's like he has all these like tricks he does, but this guy is like a bull. Like just it's unbelievable how much is all in there. And the last thing I'll just say too, I remember when I was younger, this goes back to what you were saying, Sam, about things you used to do, and then like we kind of have, here's all these new shiny things. And when I was in maybe 8th or 9th grade, I liked jump roping, and I did a lot of single leg jump roping because I wanted to jump higher. And then I got a jump program that's like, jump roping is too low intensity to do anything. And I was like, yeah, screw jump roping. And then, I got into depth jumps, and that was great. Everything took off, and it was awesome. But I think I forgot for so many years what the base was, which was just rhythm, a lot of reps, contacts. And anyways, long story short, it's a great tool. I probably had a roundabout way of saying that myself.
Because it opens up the wider question, because it's missing, like what we miss is like really key nuance. So the way, I'm a massive fan of psychology. I study it, and I believe, I do a lot of consulting with coaches to unpack, and half of it's the top 2 inches. The cogs aren't greased in the right way. So you understand their predisposition to a thought from their origin story of coaching and our taught origin story of coaching. Because not many modern coaches in this era have played sport, produced sporting achievement, and prioritized that. They've prioritized training.
Yeah.
So then they're taught, they I'm gonna go to university and programming 101, block periodization. We're going to start with our anatomical adaptation, our GPP phase. So when actually, what first module, first semester needs to be enrolled in a sport, because that's how you're going to be actually working backwards from the principle of specificity. And if we lose specificity, we misunderstand adaptive reserves and the law of accommodation, then what do we have? A profession that neglects movement, transfer, and swings off the dick of heavy barbell lifts, because that's how we determine significance. When actually significance isn't attained in the gym.
Yeah.
It's just not. So it's so important that these principles, but when we need anchoring and attachment, we want to know we've done well. We need to further understand the transfer to these areas, more importantly, rather than holding on to the change in a barbell number, because that's what we anchor to. If 2 times body weight is what we need, then let's figure out how to start really, really fast. And it's probably not 2 times body weight for a back squat, as we know. We know. So, I think they're just really important things that you can't get across on social media, and they're not shiny, but they should be.
Yeah, I think a lot of times on social media, this is what I've realized, and I'm not a marketing expert by any means, but the things that to make headway on social media, especially even versus YouTube. And I think that's why YouTube is almost a tier above a lot of like the more 5-second clip type things, is to really have something be viral, you have to check a certain amount of boxes that aren't necessarily going to teach you something. You have to plugged in for a little bit longer. And I think novelty and variety is good. Like if you use all the fun different exercises you see on the socials in a good system, I think it's fine and good.
Yeah.
But it's like you can't stay there, or you have to mix up the layers of what you learn. So to your point though about the lifting, I saw this DJ Murakami or Strong Camps had posted this. I thought it was so good. And it was that basically, if you don't have a sport you do, and you're just in the weight room, there's so much arguing over what's the best exercise. It's like, people will see LeBron doing, like you had posted, LeBron's doing this sumo weird ass deadlift that it's probably, you know what, if I'm teaching a group of high school freshmen, I'm probably not going to use that. But at the end of the day, who cares? It's LeBron, and it's just a different way of thinking. So I really like that point that if you aren't looking at sport as your cornerstone, that this is the main thing that matters, you will argue perpetually over, or you're just like, oh, functional pattern sucks. And I don't know, maybe it does suck. Like, I don't really get into it that much, to be honest. I don't care. But it's just, there's a lot of, there becomes a lot of arguing when your cornerstone isn't athletic movement and everything routing into that and the bottom line there.
The question always, like I often find that I get a lot of resistance when I voice my opinion on certain subjects from coaches that players agree with. And it's kind of like if a player, for me, is like, yeah, that makes sense. Like you get the game, and a coach is like, how dare you? There's your disconnect. There is that disconnect, and LeBron's LeBron, mate. Like his arms are as long as my fucking body. He can do whatever he likes. He should have tried out that new Fantastic Four movie. He's there.
Well, the thing of longevity too. He's doing something right, and honestly, I wonder if he was, blasting barbell lifts like, very typical, if he would have the same longevity. Maybe he can't just do anything, but I think he's probably has some intuition of what his body needs, and it's not what everybody needs.
Goes back to first principles as well. Like, again, a well-read coach would understand the fact that the relationship between general physical preparation and sport form mastery and specificity is the gap gets bigger and bigger and bigger the more years of sport competition you have. And he's got 28.
Yeah.
And he probably makes in a day what most coaches will make in a year.
Yeah. It's it's certainly interesting. And I like too the idea of, I'm trying to remember, I think it was Kevin Mulcahy who mentioned this, but the athletes who come up with play, like sport and play is their base. And a lot of it being sport and play outside the system. Like you grew up playing like Diego Maradona, who grew up playing in the streets, and or like Pistol Pete Maravich, who dribbled a basketball literally everywhere he went.
Yeah,
I think those athletes tend to have a different view when you introduce them and say, well, this is how you need to lift, to this is how you need to do these things. And Pistol Pete probably could have used a little more muscle, but it's like there's just a different way of thinking. I think it's almost like a systemically different way of approaching what you do.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's where you kind of like reverse engineer sport in itself. Like you take rugby and it's like, well, what this type of players, like I have my archetypes that are used inside the sport speed system. It's like, well, where do they fit in this archetype? How do they play their game? What's their USP? Well, actually, maybe this back row guy needs fitness. He just needs to chew ground all day and hit people. That's how he makes his money. So there's the specificity. The most change of direction he's doing is literally everything's so determined, non-reactive. He's just cutting trees down all day, So it's kind of like that's where that principle of specificity is really important, isn't it?
Athletic performance is built on a spectrum of training methods, from high velocity skills to power training to strength work. And on one end of that spectrum, on that strength end, you have the most targeted work in the form of machines. And this is part of the reason that so many top speed and strength coaches have their favorite machines to deliver that targeted stimulus. For decades, Hammer Strength has been a top provider of reliable, effective machines that are trusted by coaches and athletes worldwide. They fit seamlessly into that total performance program, delivering that targeted strength stimulus. When it comes to your machine-based strength training needs, think Hammer Strength. With specificity as well, one of the things I wanted to ask you, Sam, and you had made some comments or posts about this idea, would be some of Franz Bosch's work. And maybe I'll ask this in two sections, because I think where most people are probably common with it would be some of the ideas in the weight room, like hip locks, single leg cleans, and things that have more, at least they're more specific looking. And then I know he's done a lot of work. I'm actually less familiar with this, but out in the field, like different reps, different like turning different ways to move, like a lot of water bags type ideas. Yeah. Curious what your thought is on both sides of the coin with that. Like one, the things in the weight room that maybe a lot of people have seen, and then that approach, some of those approaches out on the field for agility.
Yeah. So I've come to terms with the fact that, or a term of bloat. So I think our profession is incredibly bloated in terms of how the question is like, how much ownership of adaptation can we keep hold of and attribute to our job without them just playing sport? So when you create a drill like the hip block, for example, you ask actually the question, what is that doing? And why is it doing it? And where does it actually fit? You know, one of the gifts that and you've written a book. One of the blessings I had of writing my book with my dyslexia was actually understanding how I see things, because you've got to write that stuff down. So I'm actually blessed with being able to see how interconnecting parts work really, really well holistically. And within that kind of thinking would completely reject the idea of movements that do not fulfill any forms of criteria that replicate sporting actions. Because as you said, like velocity is the main component of pretty much everything that we do. So when I look at something like that and like the dynamical systems theory, I spoke to Jeff Moyer about this, and, dynamical system theory was a spin-off of dynamic correspondence. And so when you think of it that way, it's kind of like, well, it's just a way that we're trying to create specificity differently. Mm-hmm. And if you were to build a house, and I'm trying to think of funny ways that I can just, if you had a group of S&C coaches trying to build a house, they would argue about the same brick. It's a fucking brick. Mm-hmm. Like that's all that it is. And what I don't appreciate and what I don't like is a lack of efficiency in training. Yeah. Like everyone has gone to a buffet and ate too much food and suffered for 3 days because of it. Players and athletes are suffering because of the amount of bloat in programming exercise selection, lack of sequencing, a lack of too much variety for variety's sake, and a lack of consistency. So if you're trying to train higher qualities, and this goes right back to the first point, we know, and hopefully some of the listeners that are with me on this, they'll be like, yeah, that makes sense. Like if we go right back to the ideas of general training, then of course you're going to get faster adaptations, aren't you? You're going to adapt early to stimulus. Say like my nan, and she's dead. She could improve her back squat. Mm-hmm. But my nan, she couldn't improve her top speed, in the same way. And so when we require something that has higher levels of finesse and higher levels of concentration, then we need less variability within the system because of the input. But we're not taught that. We're not taught how things should fall away from the program. So when you get something like a hip block, and what is it? You're walking, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like and again, I got loads of kickback for it, and from people that haven't played sport, and people don't really run fast. And so when I look at those types of drills in terms of, I'm a big Bondarchuk fan. You're dead to me if you're not, right? Because it's logic, right? And when we think about classification of movement, classification of exercise selection to inform movement, then wall drill variations, for me, like some of the hip lock stuff that you are supported, those types of exercises only work for the first 3 steps of initial acceleration. That's it. So it's not going to inform anything at top speed. And you're damn sure that marching with a fucking stick over your head is not going to help you running at 9 meters per second, 10 meters per second. Do you know what I mean? And that's where we've lost our fucking mind. It's so bloated. Because yes, I understand the theory, but I also understand the application. I've got someone who running fast is not even a specific requirement to their sport. The only sports where running fast is actually a specific requirement are track and field. 100 meters, 200 meters, 400 meters, long jump, if you want to play there. But that's it. So they are general requirements to team sports, but they're because there is the way that we look at specificity within the strength and conditioning profession is completely ignoring sport. General qualities for rugby: catch, pass, kick. So if you can't and then it's underpinned by the most specific of general qualities, which is speed. So it's where we hit our subsets and I'll shift gears quickly, but where you use water bags, well, we all used a slosh pipe years ago. Just went to the local hardware store and filled it up with water and wobbled all over the place. It's just another way to get perturbation in the system in rehab. That's it. We just, whatever you want to do, it's another tool. But I wouldn't claim it being the holy grail, because it's really not. I think Henk Kredjanov in his book sums up hip lock drills quite eloquently. And if someone's I've got the need for speed, they should just go and find that, because he does it very, very well. And again, it's can you, hand on heart, and this is the point I was going to make. Have you seen the show The Bear?
I don't think I have, no.
Right, so it's about a guy who is one of the best chefs in the world and is trying to kickstart his brother's restaurant, and it's called The Bear. And they go to this meeting, and it's like a restaurant is closing, and they have a restaurant funeral, and all these top chefs from all over the world are gathering round the table. And they're like, what was your first dish? And one of them's like, oh my God, it had 12 elements in it, like a Michelin star dish. She's like, I was an idiot. It had 12. Now her best dish has 3. That's where we need to be heading. So the elements within our training, how are you going to mix up your flavors with 12 different things? You're not going to get it. And so boss drills and hip locks will sit in a 12 element dish, with ketchup on it. Yeah. Whereas, I'm in that 3 element place.
Yeah. I've heard that analogy with even making a steak or something, like with just using salt and pepper, or it was I think it was a slow cooking barbecue place that was really famous, that that was they just used 3 ingredients or 2 or 3 and just learned to use it really well. And I think to me that's very similar to back what I said at the beginning about when you have a bunch of exercises, you can kind of choke out movement, because you learn movement when you just have a few things. There was one of the best warm-ups I ever did for just, I guess it was just general. It wasn't for anything necessarily specific, but it was a Evolve Move Play Retreat, and Aaron Cantor was leading it, and he's been on this podcast, really big into movement. I think some of this was taken from Frank Ferenczic's based elements, but it was, instead of doing like, we're going to warm up, instead of, hey, do this for 10 meters, do this for 10 meters, do this for 10 meters.
Yeah.
You can do. I think that's a fine warm up, but it was, hey, we're going to do arm swings for 5 minutes. And you just start your arms. And then after one, it's like, okay, I'm swinging my arms. Cool. And then, but after about 2 or 3 or 4 minutes, you're starting to make some more connections that you would not have if it was just, hey, let's do 10 arm swings. And then it was like 5 minutes to just shake, bounce. You could do calf jumps. You could have your heels on the ground and shake. You could shake out your arms, your legs, or whatever. And minute 1, you're just kind of doing the typical. And then after a couple minutes, you're starting to find a new connection. And so it's like with the noise, a thing I've thought of as well is it's a mile wide. What's presented to athletes is a mile wide and an inch deep. And
yes,
it's like, how often are you giving that athlete a chance to really get depth? If it's just, okay, do a set of 10 of this. Oh, here's how you do it, by the way. Here's the answers on how you do it too. And everything presented that way. And I think, that could go, it probably is more in the weight room more easily, just because the feedback loop of what's successful is different than sport too. It's like your criteria is, okay, we're going to do a bunch of stuff. Your lifts got better. So we did our thing. And we did some novel movements, which is cool. But, the thing is, I think it's always, trying to find, what's the bottom line of what we're trying to accomplish. And if it's speed, it's speed. But it's also, I think, just moving better. Like, okay, do you need more internal rotation? Okay, well, here, we got it. Here's what we're going to do. And let's try not to make things too noisy along the way, hopefully. But I think, yes, clear goals and less noise to achieve those goals. And then, room to move.
Absolutely. And players are becoming a lot more aware. I spoke to an old player that I used to work with. He went overseas, went to the States, he went to France. He was out of the UK British rugby system for about 6 years. And he came back and he did exactly the same. And I spoke to him on the phone. He was like, mate, this is fucking ridiculous. I'm 35. Like, why? Why do I need to do a yo-yo test? Why do I need to do a counter movement jump test? I'm a record holder. I don't want to give the name away, but I hold records for what I do. Why do I need that? Another one, 19 seasons doing a Bronco in professional rugby. Like, why? Like, and that's where players are getting to. They're asking that question, why do I need to do this? And if you're an S&C coach, well, you got to do a Bronco because that tells me nothing about your ability to perform at the highest level. And, it goes back to training age, it goes back to, mastery, sport form, and letting things marinate. When I was at Wasp, we had George Smith, who's World Player of the Year. Any rugby fans will know who George Smith was. He gave I think he got a 16-8 on a yo-yo too. Best rugby player in the world. Not because he could do a yo-yo. And that's where we've got that disconnect. And that's the bloat. And then they'll go, you got your yo-yo score, you got to do your MAS running. Can we just play rugby for that half an hour, please? And get better, and that's where that principle you're talking about, like time invested in these key movements, these key forms, like you say, like 5 minutes of arm swings, again, like passing, all these sport skills that are going to be underpinned by velocity. Like, I'd rather have my guys practicing 3-step breaks, outside arcs, reading perception, more like the neck upside of speed rather than the neck downside of speed. And that's how that's how we break games. That's how the best people do it. And like, as always, that test is like, if my nan can improve in this, then how important is it?
Yeah. I like, just like the vernacular and the culture. I love that. If my nan can, to me, that's the best. That's a quote that I'll be keeping. I think there's other ways you could say that, here, but I love that. So where did I want to go with this? I had a few thoughts I was kind of putting together. I did want to say with the back to the hip lock, just to touch on that quickly, is I also think that along with movement, like depth versus width, I think positions, it's very easy to say, well, get into this position. And same thing with sprinting. Oh, we'll get in the figure 4 position. That's what the fast people do. Get in hip lock position. That's 3D hip rotation. That's what you need to do. But movement is what happens in between all those positions, like real movement. And the good athletes, they intuitively get it. I'm not saying like a position is never helpful, but it's just context. And good athletics and good movement, you're going to feel that along the way. And it's really, I find it's not even the end position so much. Like it's not like a sprinter's accelerating or even, and let alone a rugby player has a million other things to think about. They're not going to think, oh yeah, I hit that hip lock, that stride. Okay, I hit that hip lock. It's actually stuff that happens in the more the weighted phase, like when everything's kind of weighted down, and that's when you get the sense of weight and transfer and inertia. If you're feeling anything, it's usually going to be stuff you feel there more. But I think it's a little more easy to say, okay, well here's the end. Oh yeah, I can. Yeah, this is this is this that. Yeah,
it's confusing. It's confusing the things that are a consequence and attributing them to have significant meaning. Like that's what the hip lock is, isn't it? It's these positions are consequential effects of many things that have happened before. So just leave it alone.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't work. It's not going to work. Get your time back. My nan wants her time back, Joel. That's what I'm saying.
She does. I was just had this thought in my head too of my I've been messing around with this bell, the vert. It's called the trainer by the dunk camp. It's like a little bell, and it's like my baby who's 19 months old. She wants to touch the bell, so I'll lift her up and she touches it. Okay, you did the position, but you missed all the stuff that happened in between. I had to lift her up there. You actually have to do it. It's kind of a funny thought in my head, but I wanted to go to like the stick drills and all the stuff. Just because I do think it's interesting. Like I've seen these like intricate, massive warm-ups that team sport athletes will do, and they're modeling track mechanics, and it's all the stick overhead, like you said, and the switches. And I think the ability to switch, or like a Darian Barr calls it remove, replace in the air, I think that's a valuable skill. But it's like that stuff is taken to the nth degree. And I'll watch these warm-ups, and then the players play, and all their mechanics change because it's all based on like the high knees go to low knees because it's all like it's just now it's almost like you had two different ways you did speed. You did the can't, all the nice positions and all this, and then you had actual movement. And I always find that interesting that people, I'm like, how many people are watching what the players do once actually the ball's in play now? And it's just, it changes everything. And like you said, track, we'd work some sticks. I like doing sticks and then throwing the stick and see how it changes because a thing that holds you in a position is not the same as running when your arms are moving and you have a more angular momentum of the legs. But I do. I think it's so easy to get carried away if it's not, there's just that inherent disconnect.
They're solving very different problems, aren't they? And what happens if you cut the wings off a plane in the air? They ain't fucking flying, is it? So, and the reason why I see this in team sports is and I'm careful not to offend anyone with my blunt nature here, but the people in track and field are trying to make money. They're trying to sell stuff to team sport coaches because it's like using Usain Bolt as an example to sell a training system. No. Actually, if you did what Usain Bolt did, you'd be all right because it's a very simple system, right? The Jamaican stuff. So what you have is you've got this in shiny, gorgeous, toxic woman of a training system. She walked past, her perfume smells, your head goes flashback to every bad lady that's been in your life, and you go, I want a bit of that. So you invest your time, your effort, your energy, your emotion, your money, you put all your attention towards this toxic thing, this lady, and guess what? She burns you. She wastes your time, she wastes your effort, she spends all your money, you buy her handbags, nice clothes, and what are you left with? No money and starting all over again. When what you really need to do is just find a nice girl, one that makes sense, one that's got logic, and one that listens to you, understands your needs and your wants and your desires. And so that's the world that we live in now. That is the world that we live in, where, how would you, there's so many like truisms. It's like you wouldn't invest in someone who's not done the thing they're telling you to do. It's a principle of mirroring. So, and they don't even exist in that world. They just give advice, So yes, from a general point, there are some really, really valuable things. I'm not saying that, but however, there is so much noise and so much nonsense that doesn't solve the problems. As you said, the mechanics go to shit on the field. Of course they do. You got a 120 kilo guy trying to take your head off. But what it does, it goes right back to the principle of anchoring significant to psychology of relationships and a strength coach. I need this because this is what is going to make the difference to me. And it does it. And it's a sell game. I think we had something blow up online recently. It was a cult thing. Oh, don't do A skips. Oh, do A skips, but this is how you do it. Like, come on, let's be real here. Sorry, I've gone on a bit of a rant there, but that's the danger that we have within the team sport profession, is that we actually lose track of the sport. We lose track of the qualities we're trying to change, the things we're trying to train, and then what do we end up doing? We get so confused. 40 weeks into the season, we're still back squatting in the gym. So then we just revert back to that basic of what we know, because the progression of mastery as a coach is so muddy and so bloated, along with all the other stuff, and that's what really as you can tell, really grinds my gears. So because I hear coaches talk to me, they go, "I don't know what to do." I was like, "We'll pull that in the bin. Let's start again."
Yeah, I want to circle back to what your process would be. I guess depending on what hat you're wearing in that warm up to play, just because I think it changes depending on perspective. I did want to mention with the yo-yo test, just a thought, was those players who failed it. I wonder if you actually measured them in the game, like if you were able to take that test, but now it's real game stimuli and the biopsychosocial, whatever word you want to put there. I'm sure there's a lot of ways you could frame that up. Is if you took those players in that test, but now it's the game, it's whether it's the actual game or a replication of the game, I would guarantee they're going to do a lot better because it's just more meaningful to them. They see there's something in a system that sees the player and sees the play based meaning and can just run faster now. I think that's definitely something I think is important to consider. And if you were looking at the game and the players, they actually are dragging in the game itself. Okay, they're playing now, and all they are, and the test says they're bad. Okay, so I think to me that's interesting. And I mean I haven't worked in a situation that I see that in like high level sport, but I see it coaching kids. I see it coaching younger athletes. Like if I was to ask them to do any sort of running test, they're like, what is this? But as soon as they play, it's just, they have tons of energy and they can go. Yep. And I think some of that, or a lot of that, lives in a high level adult athlete. That
I agree.
Driven by play.
I agree. Like when the last club I was at, I taught, like we had 15 minutes. The players will always go out before a warm up, right? And there's some that will mess around. And there's some that would do work. So I always tell my players, like, just get ready for the warm up, and then we can play in the warm up. We used to play American football. We used to play all different games, like to open up. And I would always look at what was the first couple of drills that were happening in the practice. And we would attack to them. And then that within the sort of sports speed system we spoke about before, that's where we start to actually look at special speed and tactical speed. So, in that warm-up, we're creating specialized movement signatures, combining the key movements of the tasks at high speed repeatedly. So then that movement gets ingrained. And I learned that, like, you glean a lot of that from a sport like American football, for example. I looked at American football and looked at like dance. It's all pre-routine. I just say to my fiance, it's like, do you get bored of doing the same thing over and over again? She's like, no, because it's different every time. It's different every time, and like American football, you're pre-planned steps, but it's different every time.
Yeah.
So why is that not? Why can't we take that as a sub-preparatory component of more evasion games like rugby, soccer, netball, sports like that, and apply them as a specific means of preparation? Makes sense, right? So we would do that.
Yeah. So I was going to ask you what you were. Yeah. I'm sorry to kind of my ADD
okay.
like blurting it out. Like, well, what if you're not going to do all the stick drills, Sam? What are you going to do? That's where I was getting. Yeah,
we're going to play in sport, Joel. That's what we're going to do. We're going to do variations of it. And when I was at a team last year, I got asked to help down help out the local team. And there's so much, like, it was just for a bit of fun. And they let me play. They let me play with bits and bobs. So I had a real these are not professional players, but National League players. Like, they were okay. Minimal training histories as well, which was really interesting. So I was like, came through halfway. They're like, can I have a weights program? So he's like, I can help you. Like, we've got to do this. We got to go specific first. And so they were struggling to, like, with rugby, like 2v2s, 3v2s, like picking off their players and creating a try scoring opportunities, which is what you need to win games. And I watched them and I was like, well, none of them know how to get on their inside leg to create an outside break, or none of them know how to weight shift to their outside leg to get an inside break. And if you're a supporting player, they don't have the ability to read and what I like to call mirror. They can't go with their attacker. So I was like, we'll just start there. And we were getting executions on 2v2s, like 95% of the time. And it was because we taught them, you teach the attacker what he needs to do and the supporter how he needs to respond to the attacker. And that's from a movement quality, but the rugby tactical side of it will say, take on the defenders, adjust to the defense. When actually the defense are only showing you where the space is, so you don't have to worry about the defense because they're obsolete. If you can get to the space quicker, then they don't matter. Yeah. And we had loads of success for that. And I remember the coach saying, "Fucking hell, are they doing that?" So they're using their brain. They're connecting their brain to their feet. And it was so good to see and great to see these players. They're just succeeding because they're doing the thing they've done since they were 8 years old, but just with slight tweaks and nuance. And then they'll be like, my hips are sore. My hamstrings, like, my ribs, like, what's going on? Well, we're moving now, and we're getting overload of movement, which is so key. So that's the type of stuff that I love doing, and one of I believe that what I do well is from playing sport, from having coaching qualifications in the sport that I love, to be able to actually understand where you let go of preparation and start practice. And there's a nice intersect.
Yeah. I'm glad you brought the physical piece into it, because I think that once things are presented as, well, it's just skills and it's just decision making, which is critical. Like you said, the brain up, like that is what makes elite athlete. But when you move really well, there's physical knock-on effects. Like, there's things that you get. And that's where I think that it's so valuable to experience the sport associated with the physical qualities you want to train. Like, if you're into strength training, do Olympic lifting, do calisthenics, do rock climbing. Find all the ways those skills, or the more skillful variations of strength, will work the body in a way that is very interesting. I know for me, even when I was in high school, the knock-on effect of trying to learn all these breakdance moves was my triceps were getting bigger. I was like, oh, this is pretty cool. I wasn't expecting that. And now I do some of these cool breakdance moves and my triceps got bigger. That's awesome. Yeah, I think that's a big difference, is doing a lot of the typical drill work before a practice for speed. The intensity is just not there compared to doing games, one-on-ones, 2v2s. The stimulus is not as high either. And you could, if you really were like getting on people, like Gerard Mock style, hey, 3 steps per meter, bam, like, all right, we're going to get some adaptations. But if you're not track, then that's going to get old at some point. And there's just that. And it's not the thing that really stimulates you. It's the game was that stimulating.
And the neurology of speed is so important. Like, we've got some stuff in the background that I can show you, like truly understanding neurology of speed. Like and vision, perception, all those things. How do we pull all those together to make better sort of team sport athletes? And like one of it, the biggest thing is threat removal.
Yep.
And like that's why the long acceleration principles, which I bastardized off of Verkhoshansky, works so well at Speed Gate Golf. It's threat removal. So you can run faster with less threat. You can move quicker and your body's not in threat. And then because every evidence that you have, I've just hit a PB, how did it feel? Like nothing. Well, yeah, because you're not afraid. Your body is not afraid. And when you can get that speed, not afraid, guess what you got space for? Sport. And that's why I refute. And I'm quite anti placing too much emphasis on tests. We need them, leading indicators. What's your strength to your power to your speed, and how do they influence and interconnect with one another? That's really, really important. But then also but then they need to stop. Like will time 0 to 5, 5 to 10, 10 to 20, top speed on GPS, because that's how we can only really measure it in a game. Like we'll look at those things. We'll do a 505 if we feel like it. I like a 5 by 5 meter zigzag. We used to do a lot of that with my speed group in London, because you're actually going in the direction of the field and cutting hard, fast, re-accelerating. There's so much going into it. But again, the confusion within our profession, I'm not going to create a fucking course that teaches you how to test a 505. I'm not going to teach you that penultimate foot placement and, show you how to analyze all that stuff, because, well, man, you hardly find it. If you can show me that, the only people that need that is the combine. And they drill it through deliberate practice. Like it's pretty simple. So you don't need that. And you've got all like the AI softwares, and I use some bits and bobs, but it's like, well, how do we extract more revenue out of our underpaid profession? Well, let's keep telling them and selling them on the things that we don't need them to do.
Yeah. Yeah. The fear, a threat is a big one. Well, a 5-10-5, the threat compared to in the middle of the field with people chasing you and decisions to be made. It's definitely, it's like, there's certainly a purpose to things, but it's as the tree of athleticism grows and it becomes more complex, the richness of that complexity is something too, I think we don't appreciate enough sometimes. And that's where I love coaching, even youth sports, because I was never, high school basketball is as far as I got, and I was a very individual-minded player. And it's now full circle growing that I'm appreciating more of those actual team sport constructs. And one of the things we do for just 7-year-old soccer is we warm up by you pass the ball and you say the name of the person you're passing to. So the kids each other's name, and you have to connect a person and their name with where you're going, and then we'll put pressure on it. But I'll be like the monkey in the middle. I'll walk around slowly, and you have to pass and say the name before I get to you. And it's not fast, but it's just funny because the kids who are not that wired up team sport athlete, they won't say the name. They get flustered and they just kick it away. They don't lock on. And the kids who, you can tell they're going to be the players. They can find the person, they say the name, and they kick it away. And the fear of the coach as the monkey doesn't get to them as much. And you can already see it, or I'll see it with my son. Like if I'm playing just in the backyard with him and a neighborhood friend, he moves so much faster and freely because it's me. He knows that I'm safe. versus if it's a game with his peers who are very good, it changes. And it changes for a lot of those kids. And then I think about, okay, how can I create an environment where you feel safer? Well, that's freeze tag. It's a game. It's freeze tag. But I think, okay, well, now how does that change as you get older? Because you have, let's say, high school players or college players, or I don't know how far you're going to get in the pros if you don't have these things going for you. But I am constantly thinking about that. And I do think about strength and conditioning sports performance is this ground where that threat can be down leveled. And now can we frame this up? And you can do a 5-10-5. There's no threat there. Cool. But how can we add to that in a way that can hopefully clear the gaps for some of these individuals?
Yeah, and when your time is precious, like if you're like, I've spoken to thousands and thousands of coaches, like how much time do I get? 15 minutes twice a week before a session. Oh, you're doing 3 weight sessions? Well, there's another 30 minutes so you can get back. All right, cool. So we've got an hour that we can work on this stuff over a course of a week. And so what do we do with 60 minutes? Like, what do we actually do? What moves the needle? And so these that threat detection is so important. It's these missing pieces, like sport and socialization are really important. They're so interconnected. And when you, if you were to put someone who couldn't organize their feet on a 5-10-5 drill in a game and tell them to get out of the way, they're going to get out of the way. They'll get out of the way because the context is so different. So then what that does, it makes that means useless. It makes it redundant because that if you just keep asking those questions, we'll get rid of it. Off season, we want to work on some lateral explosive power. How are we going to measure it? Well, let's do some lateral bounds with a tape measure, right? And then let's measure that with a gate. There's our 2. Sick. Sweet. Let's do it for 6 weeks. And if it goes up, it goes up. Then hang on to your hat, and it will. I think when we look at the measurables of all those things, that's where we get caught. And I came into our profession right at the beginning. It's like when we're 37 now. When with GP Sports wasn't even Catapult, and like the club I'd had, there was like the first evolution of GPS when data came in, and so then it all became about measurables, where before no one gave a fuck about what we're measuring, really, because it was about winning games and what is winning games, and then working from there. There was it's Sean Edwards. He's at France, the French defense coach. You'll love this, right? If you couldn't tackle, he had a tackle club. And this was long before my time. So he used to get a tractor tire like inner tube. And he would just hurl it across the field for covering tackles. And there was a famous winger that played there. He actually passed away recently, tragically. But you'd have to go and hunt the inner tube. And then you see that in American football a lot now with the big circle donuts and they roll. But he'd just go to the mechanic shop, get the inner tube, pump it up, go chase that, mate. And speed, power, execution. Can we measure it? No. Does it matter? Not really. Are we seeing it being expressed? Yes. Yeah. And that's the big crux of it that we kind of end up losing our mind over. But if the knock-on effect is actually if you get really good at that stuff, all the other stuff goes up.
Yep. 100%. Explosive collateral is the term. I was talking with Philip Nash, and that term came up. And I mean, honestly, for me, like the last year, my training has been a ton of that type of stuff. Yeah. I mean, just trying to be explosive. Yeah. And the funny thing is I'm jumping higher than I was 5 years ago. And I wasn't even testing the jumping. I just decided to when I pulled the mat out. Holy cow, 2 inches up on like a year or two ago, and even more than 4 years. And it's just a lot of that type of activity that you get it all, and it's meaningful. And then you can steer that into what you need to. I know that you have to get going here, Sam. And just to very quickly, maybe just to super quickly, this is like the elevator quickly. Just to summarize, okay, warm up. How much time is general stuff, if you're doing the skips and whatever, and then games, maybe just give us just the elevator breakdown of what that looks like, and then I want you to tell us about your book, and then we'll be done for the call here.
Amazing. Okay, so the principle of building a body that responds to explosive movement is a long-term thing, and it comes from a load of activity that's not done on the field. So let's get that checked, boxed off. So when every time a player comes to the field, you're going to hit the hips, you're going to hit the rotation, you're going to do those fundamental things that we all know. Secret is consistency. Don't change on that at all, because that is your tick box. You do the same thing for 5 years, you'll see the result. Then what we'll do, ankle A, is just get some rhythm, timing, get the groove it, a bit of rate coding into intramuscular coordination. Then what we'll do, if this is before a field session and we're doing acceleration-based passing and skill before we start, right, we're going to be looking at how we going to get some hip displacement early. So we'll use drill stacking, which is basically segment, position, pattern, movement. So we break a movement down like Louis did with squats and stuff like that. So the first segment, how are we going to get some hip movement? Let's use a med ball. How are we going to get some position? We're going to do some projection, some pattern, speed gate golf, bang, straight in. Then we'll play. So then we'll just have either some race and chase, some fun stuff, a bit of variability, no cones at this point, nothing on the ground, all verbal, all auditory, lines on the pitch that they're familiar with. Then bang into the session, and then straight away I'm watching what the work I just did influenced that. And if it's not influencing that, we don't do it. We change it. But that stuff that still needs being done gets put in the weight room. And that's how we cycle the systems through. So then once you've got that feed forward from the sport, you can actually start to progress and create progressions, because every player is going to go, I felt like I had a rocket up my ass going into that session, and I was able to put a 45-minute output in, which is amazing. And some coaches may be like, well, what about residuals? Newsflash, residuals don't matter for team sports. They don't matter. They can't. They can't, because residuals have to, are relied upon variation in competition as well. And you play for 30 games a season, so residuals don't matter. All right. So just get that into your head that you don't have to lift for 3 weeks and you'll still improve strength. You don't have to sprint maximally outside of the sport for a month and you'll still improve, because nothing is varying really. Which, long story short, full circle, it's all in the book.
Yeah.
It's all in the book. 400 pages. You can give all your money to Amazon. I get about £2 a book. If you chose the good quality paper, you know all about that.
Yeah.
But it unpacks everything inside from start to finish. The book was written as a field guide that if you didn't know and you were a 14-year-old kid, so I put myself when I first bought my Secret Soviet strength book. If I picked up my book at 14 years old, could I make myself better? Yes. But if a 20-year strength and conditioning coach picked up my book, could they improve with nuance? Yes. And so that's what we've challenged. We wrote it like a good movie with multiple layers. So that's the bit. Every time you read it, you see something new.
Yeah. Sports speed system, right?
The sports speed system. And for those that don't get it, I'm Sam Portland. My nickname was Sportland. And then sports. So it was my birthright. So I have to explain that to people over and over again. So yeah, the sports speed system, great marketing.
Yeah. The Sportland. I always wondered if it was Portland or Sportland.
Yeah.
Thank you for clarifying that. I know you got to go, Sam. Thank you so much for your time today. I had a blast talking to you. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Joe. I'll drop you a message. Appreciate you, man. See you later.